Hi everyone, Patrick Marks here. Thanks for watching. Today's topic, Kim Davis, the Kentucky clerk who said she would not give out marriage licenses to gay people. Now, for those of you that do not get your news from anything other than the pop-ups that come on your video games, you've probably been paying attention long enough to know that something's going on down in Kentucky. If you haven't heard, Kim Davis is a county clerk who said she would not give out marriage licenses to gay couples. So a local court said, off with her head. Off to jail you go. Well, as a biblical Christian, I do believe, like Kim Davis, that marriage should be between one man and one woman, because Jesus said in Matthew chapter 19, verse 4, God made humans male and female, and for this reason a man shall leave his father and his mother and shall be joined to his wife, and the two shall no longer be two but one. In other words, we biblical Christians do believe that God invented the human race, He invented sex, and He invented marriage, so we shouldn't mess with what God designed. Obviously, not everyone in America is going to believe the way Kim Davis and I do, but should she be forced to sign marriage licenses? Or should the state of Kentucky find a way to accommodate her personal religious beliefs? Shouldn't we be celebrating religious tolerance in this country? Now, supporters of traditional marriage think that Kim Davis is a hero because she was willing to stand up for her beliefs and go to jail for it. But supporters of same-sex marriage say that Kim Davis is not a hero, but in fact she's an intolerant religious bigot that is infringing on the rights of other people. You see, in their view, supporters of same-sex marriage say that Supreme Court of the United States has ruled that you cannot have laws that keep gay people from getting married. That means, in their view, that Miss Davis, because she's a public official, has to issue these licenses and sign them, or she should be removed from office, resign, or even go to jail. Well, the Supreme Court of the United States did make this ruling. However, in America, the Supreme Court doesn't make laws. They can only say what they think a law should be. So that means it's now up to the Congress or the states to make new laws about marriage. Technically, Kim Davis didn't break the law at all because there is no law in Kentucky right now that says that they can have same-sex marriage at all. In fact, the Kentucky State Constitution in Section 233A says the following: only a marriage between a man and a woman will be recognized as valid in the state of Kentucky. Now, the Supreme Court of the United States does say that Kentucky does need to change this law, but in the meantime, that is the law of the land, so Kim Davis really hasn't broken any laws at all. Instead, what happened is a court ruled that she should issue the marriage licenses because of the Supreme Court ruling. She refused, they held her in contempt, and off to jail she went. Now, a lot of people think that's justice because it should be the law of the land. That's what the Supreme Court says. But sending her to jail for refusing to uphold a law that's not even a law in the books yet is a serious overreach by the court. But besides all of that technical stuff, I think a real question is, should Christians defy the law at all like this? After all, we biblical Christians shouldn't try to force our morality onto everybody else. And I think that's true so far as it goes. But I also reject the idea that public officials should always obey every law just because it's the law of the land. And I'm not the only person that thinks like this. After all, it was the President of the United States in the first place, Barack Obama, who ordered federal officials not to enforce the Defense of Marriage Act, which does say that marriage should be between a man and a woman. And he did that because he felt that it was an unjust law. In other words, the President of the United States defied federal law, so why didn't somebody arrest him? So should we expect religious people to sacrifice their most cherished beliefs just because it's the law of the land? If we accept the idea that only people who agree with all the laws of the land can be in public office, that's not going to work very well, especially if the President of the United States is already defying not only the Defense of Marriage Act, but also immigration laws. Besides, how would it work if everybody has to check in their beliefs at the door in order to be a government official? Well, communism works this way because the only way to be in government in communism is to be a non-religious person that accepts everything the government says without question. Now, I'm not the only person that thinks that there is a higher law above the law of the land. Dr. Martin Luther King was a pastor like me, and he argued that the racial segregation laws in the 1960s here in the United States violated the higher laws of God. I mean, just listen to Dr. King's words, which he wrote in a letter from a Birmingham jail in 1963. One may well ask, how can you advocate breaking some laws and obeying others? The answer lies in the fact that there are two types of laws, just and unjust. Now, what is the difference between the two? A just law is a man-made code that squares with the moral law or the law of God. An unjust law is a code that is out of harmony with the moral law. To put it in the terms of St. Thomas Aquinas, an unjust law is a human law that is not rooted in eternal law and natural law. Dr. King is a hero in my view, but he had to defy the laws of the land and go to jail in order to bring about some kind of change in this country. He did that, and he was willing to go through that because he believed that there was a higher law, the laws of God, which were above the laws of the land. Biblical Christians believe that this issue is actually asking us the question, which is more important to us, the government or God? Some of the earliest Christians faced this same dilemma. Many of them were arrested and tortured and even killed because they were willing to defy the law of the land and say that Jesus is the only true God. Today, biblical Christians believe that forcing someone to sign a license that supports a lifestyle that a Christian believes is immoral, well, that would be unjust. That violates the religious liberty of biblical Christians. That means that as legislatures do make laws that are going to support same-sex marriage, if that's what they're going to do, then they're going to answer to God for that. But they need to take into consideration an accommodation for people who have deeply held religious beliefs like I do and like Kim Davis does. Not to do so will threaten the religious liberty of everybody in America. One way they could do this would be by getting government out of the marriage business in the first place. So you may not agree with me and you may not agree with Kim Davis either. But do you want the power of government today to squash my religious liberty? Because if you do, I'm here to promise you that that same government is going to squash your liberty tomorrow, religious liberty or not. Well, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel and watch the next video as I explain what Christians believe. But in the meantime, be good, don't do anything evil, and we'll see you next time.